guess we're ready to kick it off then, aren't we?
Okay, so we have this conversation all the time in the office and at home, and I decided that it would be a good idea for Dez and myself, as the co-founders of the control group, to actually have a conversation on camera about the challenges that we face running the control group. Some rather unique challenges. I'll let Des speak first about the database, because his expertise is in databases for corporates. He's got years of experience in that, but creating the database for the control group has come with some very unique aspects, and I just wanted you to talk a little bit about what those are.
Okay. I think it's probably worth saying it's broader than just a database, because it's the whole infrastructure of everything that we're doing. Beyond just the database, actually just getting the website up and running, getting the payment services up and running on there, getting the data infrastructure working in the background, and then all the challenges that go with all of that. And with a normal website, when you set it up, you kind of, you create your website, you set it up, you do all your search engine optimization, you build all your content for the pages. And then you try and get it indexed in Google, and, you buy AdWords or whatever to drive traffic to your site. This is nothing like that. There's absolutely nothing like that. We know right from the outset that things like Google, that they frown upon us. We know we're being censored
I think that's an understatement.
everywhere we're going. So you just have to think completely differently. We're so reliant on and so grateful for everybody that's actually sharing information and talking to friends and family. The participation base that we have, most of that has come through word of mouth, and it's come from the alternative media space being very, very generous with us and talking about what we're actually doing, and also people talking to friends and family, people meeting in Stand at the Park, all manner of things. So we've got absolutely no control over the visitations to our website and to our system. So that was one of the first things. So, and planning the infrastructure for that meant that we had no idea. Normally when you have infrastructure, you kind of, when you build out, you kind of can fathom when your traffic's coming from, and you can start to measure and monitor your traffic. And right, we've got 20 people that are hitting the site every day, 50 people, 100, and you can see the growth in it. Because we've been so reliant on sort of word of mouth and social media, we've had massive spikes in visitations, and we've had to plan for, just by one podcast, all of a sudden we could have a spike that's 3,000% of the traffic that we would normally have in a day in 1 hour. So, actually having the infrastructure to support all of that behind what we're doing, is a challenge. Fortunately, IT infrastructure and scalable on-demand infrastructure and stuff is in a much better place now, and we've been able to leverage a lot of that to do what we're doing. And then you've got paranoia, which we're
all paranoid.
We know we're constantly under attack. We know that we're being frowned on with what we're doing. We're only actually putting out a service and collecting information and democratizing that information. We're not actually doing anything wrong. We're actually, what we're doing is a great service. And coming under attack for it, and the paranoia with that, means that everything also has to be packaged in such a way that it's so portable. So, which is the other thing that we've done. We use a sort of what's called a containerized technology. We basically, everything is sort of in virtual machines and containerized, and we can move it anywhere. So it means that we've got great redundancy, and we've got redundancy baked in, so that we can spin up infrastructure whenever we need.
What does redundancy mean? Because the majority of people myself included, have no idea what you mean by redundancy.
So if you think of redundancy like having a generator in your office or in your building, if the energy gets cut off, if if the grid goes down, or your power's gone, but having a backup generator means that you can turn that on and you're back up and running again, without the grid being there. And it's basically the same thing for us. If as we saw with Parler, it got shut down. If you get shut down from one host, you need to be able to move that and port your application somewhere else very quickly. And that's really what we're talking about with redundancy.
That's a bit like what happened with the payment system.
Exactly. Yeah, which is the other thing as well. Yeah. I mean, the constant fear of being deplatformed. Again, yeah, it is an ongoing challenge as well. It's they're just crazy stresses that you wouldn't normally have to think about. Obviously, data security, privacy, those kind of things you always have to think about. They're things that everybody has to do. But I guess that's another thing that we've just kind of, with our paranoia, we have to take everything to another step. Other challenges we have is like email. Our emails are constantly being blocked.
Yep.
So, and they tend to block emails based on IP addresses and where the mail servers are and what you're using. So, we've had to actually spin up our own mail servers, and we run them on our own infrastructure, and we can migrate that and spin that up anywhere else and move it around as we need to kind of fight back against some of this censorship.
So does that actually get over the blocking? Because I know at the moment a lot of our emails are being blocked.
I've done it now.
Okay.
So the email should be going through again, but we know that it'll be a period of months or before that's flagged again, and then we get blocked again, and it's a game of cat and mouse.
And we don't always know when it's happened, because until participants somehow get through to us and say, I haven't received emails from you, and we go and check, and they should have received emails, that we find out we've been blocked, or we've been personally blocked, or it's just you don't always find out immediately, do you?
Well, the thing is, you should do, because normally when you send out emails, you get bounce backs, that bounce back process enables you to actually say, okay, I know the emails aren't being delivered, and therefore I can deal with it. But what's happening, or what appears to be happening, is that emails are being blocked, but we're not getting the notifications that emails are being blocked. It's a bit like what we're seeing on social media with the shadow banning, where things are actually being you're allowed to post it, but it's not being shared. No, there's no eyeballs on it,
which is happening with our Twitter.
Exactly.
And probably Facebook as well. Yeah.
It's
constantly being banned, blocked, and trying to have to find ways around and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and it is a game of cat and mouse.
It really is. And actually, you were saying about the spikes when we send out some sort of information, we get a spike of participants. That spike usually comes with something being triggered somewhere that goes, they're doing something. There they are. Let's block them in some way. So, there is a sort of a price to pay each time.
Yeah, there is. And actually, it's probably worth talking about as well that, what people see of us, they only see the website where they put the data in.
Yes.
That's all they actually see. And for most people, that's what they think exists. But sitting behind that, we've had to build a whole layer of infrastructure to not just record that information, but we also have to protect the information. We have to have backups and redundancy. And then we also have to have a suite of tools that we use internally, which we've had to develop for managing all of the support issues that come through, for making sure that we can support people properly, to send out emails back to people and to catalogue that. And, there's a lot more that, what people see is just the tip of the iceberg rather than everything else that is happening behind the scenes.
Although that's fairly normal for any database system, isn't it? Is that particularly unusual, or are the layers more in what we're doing than normal?
Well, it's the fact that when we first set this up, people say, well, you only need to put up a database and that's it. You can walk away. There's nothing else that needs to be done to it.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're supporting a community of people using technology, that needs a layer of infrastructure to do that.
Yeah.
It isn't just as simple as saying, right, here's a website and I can walk away and leave it. It's a database online is a very different beast. It needs to be managed and maintained. You need to make sure it's accessible all the time. And obviously we're worldwide. So, it never sleeps.
Yeah.
We don't have any period of downtime. I don't know if you remember, but when eBay first came out, it used to close down every Friday.
I don't remember that.
No, it used to shut down every Friday for a couple of hours while they were updating all their systems and everything.
Oh, wow.
And then it went live again.
Yeah.
And because they had the similar issue and they had to do, to service the systems and to keep everything up to date. Fortunately, IT technology has come a long way since then, and we've got much better ways of sort of, constantly improving the infrastructure and rebuilding things out without actually, giving people any downtime. But being 24/7, 365 days a year or 366 days this year, that takes, we have to have processes to monitor that, to make sure it's working all the time, and to be available, to be responsive if there are any issues that happen as well. And of course, as you know, with our paranoia, you're constantly kind of worried about it. And then the other aspect of it is we have to be very protective over our data.
Yeah.
So, this came up on the call yesterday, where one of the participants was asking about how we protect against bots.
Yes.
Which was really interesting that other people are thinking about this as well, because we've seen already that people have been building technology to try and populate our database with rubbish information. So, as well as actually building the data, we're having to be guardians of that data and work really hard, building in processes and checks and audits to be able to keep that data accurate and up to date, and to fight back against attempts that people are doing to try and, damage the integrity of it.
Is that normal in database systems to have groups of people intentionally trying to damage your data? Does that normally happen, or are we just on a bigger scale? Because obviously we're having, constant attacks trying to damage the integrity of it.
Okay, so what's really different is this is a worldwide accessible database. Most database systems generally are for businesses to use themselves internally. So it's only their internal staff that have access to it. So therefore, you don't have the challenge. I mean, you still have people putting garbage in, that's always the case. But it's generally someone's job to keep that accurate, and they're generally, held accountable if they do try and do anything to damage the data, or they don't do anything maliciously to try and damage the data. When I've built database systems in the past, you put checks in there to kind of keep the quality of the data there, but people aren't maliciously trying to damage the data. That's a different animal altogether. Actually having sort of, malicious players out there.
Yeah. And another aspect that's just occurred to me that is really our participants. We're trying to collect data from people who want to primarily remain anonymous and not give any data away, which is a bit like herding cats, really. And we're trying to run a database that necessarily has to have a few cookies in order for it to stay on the screen and run, with people who really don't want to give consent to cookies at all. And we completely understand that, because we're exactly the same. We don't want to be giving away our data, giving away our information about ourselves, sign up to cookies, etc. So we're dealing with an audience who, although they really want to participate in this study and see what's happening to those people who haven't taken the vaccine, they're really, really reluctant to actually put the data anywhere and trust and sort of getting people to trust what we're doing and to see that actually we are doing something, really good, and not just mining for data to expose people to the government, which is one of the biggest accusations we've had in the past. It's probably the biggest difficulty part after the technology, if not bigger than the technology. Trying to convince people to actually use the system.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, and it is crazy because all of the legislation that's out there, things like GDPR, it's not really designed to protect anybody's data. It's designed to authorize businesses, to actually go ahead and use the data. It's almost like it's generally used in a get out of jail free way to actually say, look, this is what I'm going to be doing with your data. Mm-hmm. So really all they're doing is it's a consent model to say, look, you actually are consenting for us to actually use your information.
So it's another example of a missold consent.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, it's not missold because
it's kind of misrepresented if you assume that that GDPR is there for your benefit, whereas actually it's more for the business's benefit. Or am I not?
It's more of a control mechanism,
right?
I think it's another one of the sort of the overreach control mechanisms. I mean, they don't really have GDPR in the USA in the same way. It's a European directive really that was driven to do this. The same with cookies. I mean, cookies is such a nonsense because most websites need an element of cookie. Any website you've got to sign into, they have to know that every time you refresh that information on that page or move to another page, they need to hold the state of who you actually are so you can move through. And it's basically a session. So you're running a session on there. And in order to hold that session, you need a cookie to know that it's the same visitor and you're viewing the next page and therefore you're the next step in a process. So that's an essential part of operating a website. But what goes along with that is all the tracking that's done that's embedded into cookies. So, the actual technology of a cookie is an essential part of using a site generally, but it's all the erroneous tracking that goes with it, and particularly when you've got things like Facebook that basically they give people the technology to put a dot, which is basically like a hidden image that goes onto the website, and then everything is tracked through that image. So they're able to see, where people are coming from. And they're also then using
we don't use those, do we?
No, not at all. No.
Just to clarify.
No, and actually, it's another thing, when I've built websites in the past, you use all manner of tracking stuff. So you can monitor how people are using it. And, you can market better to people. These technologies are there and they're very useful as an operator of a website to be able to market and sell your services better, which is, again, we're not really selling our services. So, we have no outbound marketing as such, other than, just building awareness of what we're doing. But we're not actually proactively going out there and buying AdWords and things like that to drive people to us. And actually, it's almost like counterproductive when we do. We really are grassroots. It's very, very different, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Was there anything else in the technology, or shall we talk a little bit about the community aspect?
I think, I don't think there's anything more specific that.
No,
it's really the operational side of what we're actually doing that's very different. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I know you've had challenges, sort of, helping the community side of things as well. So yeah. I mean, that really made me laugh. I mean.
Yeah, we've had so on the community chats, we get infiltrated every so often. So we have lovely community chats where people come along and they just talk about what's happening, where they are, and it's a safe space where people know that everyone else has a similar mindset and they can talk freely, whereas they might not be able to talk with their families and friends. When we've tried to sort of put these chats further out to try and get more people to come and join and benefit from them, what we inevitably get is interesting men from other countries with hardcore porn. And it's The first couple of times it happened, we were just sort of sat, jaws aghast, like, what the hell is this? But and you quickly remove them from the chat. But then we've found that as we've been going on, we'll get 5 or 6 in a row, and they have techniques where they will play sounds that go on and off, so their image on Zoom will move around, and you have to try and use your mouse to catch them to remove them. It's a bit like playing whack-a-mole. And I mean, fortunately, the majority of the people on the chats are fabulous, not easily offended, and actually, we see it as quite humorous now. And we've put on waiting rooms so that when no one can come straight into the Zooms. They come to the waiting room. We can see them there, and often we can tell by the name that it's a possibility. So we let them in, and then we're all watching with bated breath as to whether this is a real person or it's going to be, some bloke with his didgeridoo out. It's interesting, and actually, we all take it with good humour now, and we have questions that we ask people to assess. Sometimes it's a real person; they just haven't got their camera on, because they're a bit shy, and we don't want to sort of offend them by saying, are you going to do something horrible?
What do you think that is? I mean, have you heard of other people suffering with issues like that?
I know a few other organisations like us have had that. And the thing is, they seem to be different as well. So some of them are people just coming in with annoying videos. So they might suddenly start playing a video of a man eating crisps really noisily, which is
right, okay.
is kind of odd. Other times we get live people coming in and they'll be shouting and just making weird random noises. Sometimes they come in and will change their names to someone else in the chat, and will accidentally remove the wrong person from the chat, which is incredibly embarrassing. But they tend to come in groups. So there'll be one, then another one, then two. They're mostly from Asian countries. We've had a group of Asian men in a swimming pool splashing around. It's very odd. And I don't know what the purpose is other than to disrupt and maybe upset us and make us stop. And it doesn't. We're hardy.
Does it feel like it's coordinated to you? Is it?
Well, I don't know how it works, because when we get them, we usually get more than one. So you'll get one person come in, we'll get rid of them, and then there's another 2 lined up in the chat, and we'll let them in because we don't know if they're real or not, and then another 2 or 3. So it's rarely less than one. You usually get a few at the same time. Now, I don't know if that's one person with multiple Zoom profiles, or is a company paying people, to go out and do this. I don't know.
That's what I mean. Is it a coordinated attack? That is happening, and it's really, really bizarre, isn't it?
What I don't think it is, thankfully, I don't think it is just weirdos who like to come and get off on seeing people talking. I think it is a concerted attack to disrupt our lovely, friendly, caring spaces.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It does feel like that. I mean, maybe that's something that we need to look at as well, because, because bringing that back to the technology side of stuff, we can't, obviously we can't use normal mail services like Google and so on. Generally, we try and avoid that. And we run our own mail server in order to get around that. We run our own intranet server. So we have our own calendars and everything, and we use open source code to do that. And I have looked at in the past actually using an open source alternative to stuff like Zoom. It does work very well, and it would give us a lot more ability to actually start monitoring what's actually happening and see if we can see any patterns and stuff with it, because I can do a lot more with the back end.
But the issue behind that is the perennial issue that we have with technology, is that you're introducing another something new. And the people in our camp, as it were, are pretty resistant to technology. And throwing new technology is really off-putting. We've seen it with the new version of our system, and trying to get people to use an alternative to Zoom, which Zoom is mainstream, but it works really, really well. Going to something else that may not work, you don't know what it is. It's a pain. And actually, on Zoom front as well, another challenge we're having at the moment is that our automated email confirmations from Zoom aren't actually getting to our participants all the time. So are we being shadow banned or blocked there? We constantly have issues. And in a normal company, I think you'd just say, well, it's a technological issue. In our company, it's, well, is it a technological issue, or is there someone out there actively trying to do something to us?
Paranoia?
Yeah. Or are we just being paranoid and the internet's not working very well today?
Normally, when you find your mails being blocked, and our mails being blocked, not the newsletters and stuff we're sending out. It's just regular email that you're sending to people that's being blocked. And when we actually reach out, I mean, we've done that with Microsoft, and we've reached out, and they have a service that you can reach to and actually say, look, remove me from spam, and this isn't spam, and they've refused to unblock us. And they've said, no, we're not unblocking it. So
bloody hell.
Yeah, it is.
We're really fighting against all of them. So the technology that we need to use, they've got things in place to stop us using it at every turn, at every corner, every turn.
They have, but like I said, it's a game of cat and mouse. It's you just have to plan for how you're going to deal with this, and you have to be very fluid so that you can actually move and migrate around. That's what I was talking about with actually being able to have these sort of redundant services and these backup plans, so that you're able to sort of migrate away and use different services and use different hosting providers and so on as you need to, in order to actually to keep everything uninterrupted and operational.
But the main thing that all of this does is it actually costs us a hell of a lot more to run this than it should, because we spend twice as much time doing something, having to redo it because it didn't work, because it was blocked, shut down, recreating it, working ways around it. It makes it much more costly than your normal system, more time consuming, and actually quite demoralizing at times, because just as you think you're getting somewhere, your PayPal gets shut down, and you've got to start everything again and redo everything. It's hard knowing that at any point something could go through no fault of our own.
It is a constant worry. That's for sure. I mean, I think
you quite enjoy it, though.
I was going to say, you know me, I'm a
sadistic way.
I'm a bit perverse with things like that. Yeah. I actually quite enjoy the challenge.
Yeah.
I find that actually, it is kind of problem solving, and it is like having a game of chess.
Yeah. Or whack-a-mole.
Like you said, yeah. So the challenges can be fun, but they do slow you down as well. I mean, we've only got limited resources, and so you're not able to progress as quickly as you want to with things, because you're fighting all of these other battles simultaneously.
Yeah. And actually, talking of resources, the other major issue that you would have in the future, at the moment we haven't got that issue, is in terms of the IT team. So we've got an IT team that's very small, smaller than needed actually, but to actually bring anyone else on board would have so many issues, because of trying to find someone that has the skill that you can trust, because it would be so easy for someone to come in and actually mess with the internal system if they're working on it.
Well, you see, we can deal with that. What we actually have is we have development platforms which we use, where we write all the code and we test it on a development platform first before it goes into production. So we can bring in other people and we can allow them to use and work through the development platform. But we have a very small team of people that have access to the production platform.
Yeah.
And that's
the bit you couldn't really expand at all.
And that's
ever.
That we really have to make sure that we've got only really trusted people that have access to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So even employing people is
but
difficulty.
Small teams. I listened to a podcast the other day with Mark Anderson. He was the guy that built Mosaic and set up Netscape. So the first internet browsers, basically, and he was talking about the concept of and the sort of the joke that goes around quite regularly that if your development team needs more than 2 pizzas to feed them, then you've got too many people working on a project,
or a very hungry development team, knowing IT men.
Yes, that's right. No, but the point is that large organisations generally suffer to get anything done. I mean, we know what we're doing, collecting the health data and the way that we're collecting the health data. Large enterprises, organisations like the NHS, they're trying to do this for decades and they've never got anywhere with it. They're very slow with doing that. I mean, it's amazing how you can go to your doctor and you get a referral to a consultant, and then you turn up and see your consultant and they don't have access to your medical data. So they actually don't know anything about you when you turn up. That seems crazy to me that, in 2024 now, we still struggle with these crazy things in a system that just has one governing body, the NHS. I mean, it's nuts, isn't it?
But I mean, you and I have both worked in organisations, large organisations in the past, where we've seen how the IT works and how it's not connected. And,
it's so disjointed.
We both know just how bad it is. The bureaucracy behind it and all that.
But it's these large enterprises that never get anything done.
Yeah.
It's the small, agile groups that are actually able to make big difference. That's why, what we're doing is so disruptive, because we're able to, although we can't move as fast as we want, and it does take a long time to do what we're doing, and we have, a lot of constraints in terms of the resources and finances to do what we want to do, and we have to manage the purse strings very carefully to do that. It is, nevertheless, having a small team is actually how you get things done.
Absolutely. Well, I think on that note, before we
need to get some stuff done, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And before you start talking too much about the database, because actually, on one final note, one of the things that we have to do is not talk too much about the actual infrastructure, because we have to keep that super secret, to keep its integrity. So
I mean, that is, that is one of the aspects. I mean, we do some testing and things like that, but and we do use some external tools to do penetration testing and stuff like that on the system. But yeah, absolutely. A large part of security is
hush.
Is keeping quiet about it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think that covers most of the challenge that we have. Thank you.
All right.